Why does Mumbai flood every year despite reassurances from the civic body and those managing the city that flood preparations have been put in place? What's the reason that on every occasion that the city faces an urban flood or a flood-like situation, trains are disrupted, flight schedules are affected, road transport is affected, and this time around, even the newly built underground metro had to stop its services in one section because of one of the stations being waterlogged. This was an underground station, of course, that was waterlogged. Now, there are 4 or 5 reasons that make Mumbai susceptible to urban floods. The first one is, of course, that it's a coastal city and the drainage system is largely dependent on whether there's a high tide or a low tide. Now, if there's a high tide and that coincides with heavy rains, Mumbai's city's low-lying area are likely to be affected by waterlogging. And this is because the lock gates of the drainage system are closed, which means the water cannot flow out naturally. The lock gates are closed to prevent the seawater from flooding the city, and therefore it has to be pumped out. Now, which of course takes time. The second reason, of course, is also the topography of the city and the original form of the city, which was 7 islands. Now, the main city has been built with these 7 islands, of course, coming together with land reclamation, and therefore there are low-lying areas and upper areas, and of course the water will always collect in the low-lying areas, which are basin-like formations within the city's topography and geography, and that is why the water collects in these low-lying areas, and then of course it's pumped out from there using the stormwater drain and the pumping stations that are built to support this drainage system for the city. But there is waterlogging in these low-lying areas. The third, of course, is a very, very important issue, and this has been a more recent phenomenon, and that is, of course, the changing rainfall pattern. Now, for example, this time around, the month of May has seen huge rainfall, which is not usual. Usually, the monsoon arrives in this city by the first week of June, but 1 week early, and it can cause mayhem and havoc, as the city has seen today. Now, yesterday was a very, very heavy rainfall day. Of course, the city's drainage system is meant to handle a certain amount of rainfall per hour. If the rainfall crosses that amount, then even with the redundancies built in, it becomes much more difficult to manage it. And then, of course, if the rainfall days are less and the rainfall is heavier instead of being spread out across the entire season, that also causes a problem. Now, following up from what the earlier reason was, there is also another specific reason this year. With the monsoon arriving early, the pre-monsoon works that the city's civic body undertakes have not yet been completed, which means that the desilting works, the drainage unclogging works, the cleaning works to ensure that the city is prepared for a monsoon is not wholly complete, and that could lead to the city facing a flood-like situation, which is what many believe has happened today, that the monsoons have arrived early, and therefore this is something that obviously the city is grappling with and in a sense struggling to cope with. The other, of course, is the ambitious drainage project for Mumbai, which is called the Brimstone, and that is still incomplete, and that was to give a proper drainage system that was to be upgraded, and this was decided after that massive flood that the city saw in 2005, but it's still incomplete after so many years, and leading to every year the city facing flooding in some part or the other. While there have been additions, while a lot of the places flooding issues have been resolved, the entire city is not free from urban flooding because this particular project, which is the Brimstone project, is still incomplete. Now, these are the reasons why the city faces flooding every year. But again, this is one of the reasons that the early onset of monsoon and perhaps this record-breaking rainfall in the month of May, that's contributed to this time around, at least this episode of flooding in the city being reported from Mumbai.